I will destroy you. Jon Moxley makes a shocking return to WWE SmackDown and directly confronts Bron Breakker in a moment that shakes the entire roster. Breaks down this intense showdown, the escalating chaos surrounding Breakker's path of destruction, and how Moxley's comeback sets the stage for a massive storyline heading into future WWE events. Full analysis, speculation, and expert breakdown of what happens next. Jon Moxley just betrayed everything AEW built. After years of being Tony Khan's locker room leader, after claiming he'd never go back to WWE, after talking endless trash about Vince McMahon and the corporate machine, Jon Moxley walked onto SmackDown last night and made Vince look like a prophet. But here's what makes me absolutely furious: Moxley didn't just return for a nostalgia pop or a part-time deal, he returned to pick a fight with Bron Breakker. The one guy on the roster who doesn't need a 40-year-old has been trying to steal his spotlight. Moxley looked directly into Breakker's eyes and said, "I will destroy you," and I'm sitting here thinking, really, Jon? You're going to destroy the future of WWE? You're going to come back and immediately try to bury the next generation? This reeks of desperation, ego, and everything wrong with wrestling. Let me break down exactly what happened on SmackDown, because the shock value of this moment cannot be understated. The show is rolling along, and Bron Breakker is in the ring cutting a promo about his path of destruction through the WWE roster. He's talking about how nobody can stop him, how he's the most dominant force in WWE, how his Steiner bloodline makes him unstoppable. The crowd is eating it up because Breakker has been incredible, athletic, intense, believable as a main event monster. Then the lights flicker, and when they come back up, there's a figure standing at the top of the ramp. The camera zooms in slowly, building tension, and when we finally see the face, it's Jon Moxley. Not Dean Ambrose, this is Moxley. The AEW version with the black trunks, the wild hair, the death stare. And the crowd absolutely erupts. Half in shock, half in excitement, everyone completely losing their minds. Before we continue, comment immediately: are you happy Jon Moxley is back in WWE, or do you think this is a mistake for both him and the company? I need your raw, unfiltered opinion. Moxley walks to that ring with purpose. This isn't nostalgia Dean Ambrose coming back to crack jokes with Roman and Seth. This is the violent, unpredictable Moxley who main event AEW pay-per-views and had brutal death matches. He slides into the ring, and Bron Breakker, to his credit, doesn't back down. The young lion stands his ground against the returning veteran, and you can feel the tension crackling like electricity. Moxley grabs a microphone, and what he says next sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. He goes, "Bron Breakker, I've been watching you destroy people, watching you claim you're the future, watching you act like you're untouchable, and I came back to WWE for one reason: to prove that your future ends with me. I will destroy you." The directness. The threat. This wasn't a challenge for a match, this was a promise of violence. Bron's response was perfect. He gets right in Moxley's face and says something like, "You think coming back from AEW makes you dangerous? You think I'm supposed to be impressed? I've been breaking people younger, stronger, and faster than you. You want to be destroyed? Get in line." The disrespect. The confidence. This is exactly what WWE needed from Breakker, showing he's not intimidated by legends. Quick trivia: how many years was Jon Moxley away from WWE before this return? Drop your answer if you've been following his career. Security rushes the ring to separate them before it gets physical, but both men are fighting to get at each other. Moxley is throwing security guards aside. Breakker is launching people out of the ring. The intensity is off the charts. And SmackDown goes to commercial with this image burned into your brain: Moxley and Breakker both restrained but locked in a stare down that promises violence. Now let's discuss why this return is so controversial and, frankly, problematic for multiple reasons. First, Jon Moxley spent the last 5 years building AEW's credibility. He was their world champion. He was the guy who legitimized AEW as competition to WWE. He cut promos about how AEW gave him creative freedom, how he'd never be controlled by corporate wrestling again, how WWE was a prison that stifled his creativity. And now he's back. What does that say about everything he claimed? Was it all lies? Was it all just working the marks? Because if Moxley can go back to WWE after everything he said, it makes AEW look like a stepping stone, like it was just a place to rehab his image before crawling back to the big leagues. Tony Khan has to be furious, even if he's too polite to say it publicly. Comment question: do you think Jon Moxley owes AEW loyalty, or is he just a smart businessman taking the best deal? Where do your loyalties lie? Second issue: why is Moxley immediately targeting Bron Breakker? Breakker is 27 years old. He's in the prime of his athletic career. He's the future that WWE is building. And here comes 39-year-old Jon Moxley trying to insert himself into Breakker's ascent. This reeks of Moxley trying to stay relevant by attaching himself to the hottest young star on the roster. If Moxley came back and challenged someone his own age, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, even Seth Rollins, that would make sense. Those are his peers. But going after Breakker feels like Moxley is trying to leech off Breakker's momentum rather than build his own storyline. And that's exactly what's wrong with wrestling right now, legends refusing to let the new generation shine. Here's the counter-argument though, and I want to be fair, maybe Moxley is coming back specifically to put over Breakker. Maybe WWE's plan is for Moxley to have this intense feud where Breakker ultimately defeats the legendary Moxley, which would establish Breakker as an undeniable main eventer. That would be smart booking. Bring back a name that casual fans remember, have him be a credible threat, and then have the young star conquer him. But do we trust WWE to book it that way? Or will they fall into the same trap of protecting the veteran at the expense of the future? Hot take question: who do you think should win when Moxley and Breakker finally fight? The veteran or the future star? Explain your reasoning. Let's analyze the implications of Moxley's return for the broader WWE landscape. First, this completely changes SmackDown's main event picture. You now have Moxley as a top name who can slot into championship matches, marquee feuds, and major pay-per-view bouts. That's good for business and ratings, but it also creates a logjam. SmackDown already has Roman Reigns, when he appears, Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles, LA Knight, and now Moxley all competing for top spots. Where does that leave Bron Breakker in the pecking order? Does he get pushed down the card because Moxley needs to be featured? That's the danger of bringing back big names, they disrupt the ecosystem. Second, Moxley's return sends a message to AEW talent. If Mox, Tony Khan's most loyal soldier, the guy who literally saved AEW during the pandemic, can go back to WWE, then anyone can. This opens the floodgates for other AEW wrestlers to start considering WWE offers. That's devastating for AEW's long-term viability. Think about the wrestlers who might be watching: Kenny Omega's contract situation, the Young Bucks' creative frustrations, MJF's ambitions. They're all now thinking, if Moxley went back, why shouldn't I? WWE just won a major psychological victory in the wrestling war. Prediction time: which AEW star do you think will be the next to jump to WWE? Give me your boldest prediction in the comments. Now let's talk about the promo itself, because Moxley's delivery was chilling. The "I will destroy you" line wasn't delivered with bravado or showmanship, it was delivered with cold certainty. Like Moxley was stating a fact rather than making a threat. That's what made it so effective. He didn't scream, didn't posture, just looked Breakker in the eyes and promised destruction. Bron's response showed remarkable composure for someone his age. He didn't look scared, didn't look intimidated, he looked ready. That's the difference between Breakker and other young wrestlers who crumble under pressure from legends. Breakker has that Steiner DNA that makes him fearless, and it showed in this confrontation. The crowd reaction was split in fascinating ways. Older fans who remember Dean Ambrose and The Shield were popping for Moxley's return, but younger fans who've only known Breakker's dominance were booing Moxley for disrespecting their guy. That organic division creates the perfect storm for a compelling feud. Let's discuss match possibilities, because when these two finally collide, it's going to be violent. Moxley's style is brawling, hardcore, no rules chaos. Breakker's style is power moves, athleticism, and intensity. Those styles mesh perfectly for a brutal encounter. I'm predicting their first match will be at a major pay-per-view, maybe Royal Rumble or Elimination Chamber, and it'll be a no disqualification or street fight. You can't have these two in a traditional wrestling match. The story demands violence. Chairs, tables, blood, the whole package. Match prediction: what stipulation should Moxley vs. Breakker have? Drop your ideal match type below. Here's a wild theory I'm throwing out: what if Moxley's return is connected to Paul Heyman? We know Paul has been orchestrating chaos with Brock Lesnar and Vision. What if Paul recruited Moxley as another piece in his master plan? Moxley has history with Paul from the Shield days. Paul knows how to manipulate Moxley's violent tendencies. This could be bigger than just Moxley versus Breakker. This could be Paul building an army of destroyers. Imagine Brock Lesnar, Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed, Drew McIntyre, and now Jon Moxley, all under Paul Heyman's guidance. That's not a faction, that's an extinction event for the WWE roster. And it would explain why Moxley targeted Breakker specifically. He's testing him to see if Breakker is worthy of being part of Paul's elite group. The backstage politics of this return must be insane. How did WWE pull this off without leaks? Wrestling journalists had no idea this was coming. That means WWE kept this secret, which is rare in the internet age. Triple H and his team deserve credit for executing a genuine surprise return. But what did this cost? How much money did WWE throw at Moxley to get him back? And what does his contract look like? Is he full-time, part-time, or just here for a specific program? These business questions matter because they determine how committed Moxley is to this return. Speculation question: do you think Moxley signed a long-term deal or just a short program? What makes more sense for both parties? Let's address the elephant in the room. Moxley's history with WWE wasn't great. He left in 2019 feeling creatively stifled, frustrated with scripted promos, angry about how Dean Ambrose was booked. So what changed? Did Triple H convince him that WWE is different now under his creative leadership? Did money talk? Or does Moxley have creative control this time? If Moxley got creative freedom in his new contract, that's huge. It means WWE is willing to let him be the violent, unpredictable character he became in AEW rather than forcing him back into the wacky Dean Ambrose box. That would be a win for everyone. The production value of this return was perfect. The lighting, the camera work, the silence before Moxley spoke. WWE understands how to create moments. This return will be in highlight packages for years. It'll trend on social media for days. That's successful television. If Jon Moxley's shocking return has you fired up or furious, smash the like button right now. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter because this Moxley vs. Breakker feud is just beginning and we're covering every explosive development. I need you in the comments. Is this return good for wrestling or bad for the business? Who wins their eventual match? Is Moxley a sellout or a smart businessman? Let's get 5,000 comments debating this because it's the most controversial return in years. Share this video everywhere because Jon Moxley just shook the wrestling world, and everyone needs to pick a side, Team Moxley or Team Breakker. Until next time, remember, in professional wrestling, nobody stays away forever, and when legends return to face the future, only the strongest survive. Let's go!